Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Week 7 edition of Manz Maker. It's your favorite DFS analyst's favorite DFS show. I am, of course, your very humble but also very prideful host, Pete Manzanelli. And today, I am joined by a truly prestigious guest. This is a man's you can find on the Twitters dropping juicy nugs when his account hasn't been suspended. This is a man's that you can see about the action networks. And most importantly, this is a man's whose last name you literally can't spell without the word tits. Ian Hartitz, welcome to the show, my dude.
Manz, thank you so much for having me. Seems like just yesterday we were playing beer pong at your mansion in Vegas.
That's right, dude. We couldn't get you into the gambling Olympics in official capacity, but I still, of course, extended the invite over to you. And it was a good time. I remember I was running back and forth between events, and I'm just seeing you just posted up a little beach cabana over there, listening to some podcasts, reading, some nonfiction, I assume. Like, dude, you were living the life at my house.
I'm not one of those people where they go on vacation and, I'm working out and doing a bunch of this and that, man. If I'm on vacation, I'm ready to chill. And then, when we were at that mansion, hey, I'll lay out on the free beach. But hey, man, thanks for having me. And Manz, call me Tits if you want, man. That's what my friends have been calling me since about 8th grade. So I consider you a friend. Call me Tits.
Well, I mean, I would hate to have my humor equated with that of an 8th grade level, but I actually find that to be an honor. And I will call you Mr. Tits from now on. And I mean, let's talk about that because everyone, Adam Levitan's, everyone was, trying to get your account back. So if you guys don't know, Ian's account got, unfairly taken down by Twitter.coms. People were trying to get it back up. And my personal theory was Twitter was upset with Tits and the handle and had to shut it down. Did that end up being the case?
I never actually found out what the case was, but yeah, there were certainly some funny comments thinking that could be what it was. It sucked though, man. I was just I was trying to help the people out and kind of be like the Rob Perez Wobe NFL highlight guy. Thought we had a really fun preseason of it, and then week 1 came around. Guess I was hitting the Monday Night Football highlights too fast because Tuesday came around and I was suspended. But like you said, man, dear Adam Levitan, and of course Jerry, beautiful dog, helped me out, gave me a good tweet. The people got behind it, and I'm back on the Twitter sphere today.
Well, we are all very appreciative. I will say, isn't the way to get around it? You were doing these nice HD GIFs, screenshots, what have you. But the WOB and the guys that get away with it, they're just pulling up their cell phone and recording their own TV. Isn't that what you need to do to get away with it?
Man, I think the NBA just doesn't care because they figure any of this publicity is good publicity. I mean, it's not like it's really hurting anyone, but I don't know, man. I think the problem was I was doing it. I don't want to, humble brag. I was doing it too fast because I was starting to beat the NFL highlight account. So I don't know if they really enjoy seeing that going on, but it is what it is. I'm trying. I don't know. I see like Peter King and some of these dudes like shouting out Game Pass. So I'm fine without doing live stuff. I'd love to show people some Game Pass stuff during the week, but that's something I'll figure out in the future.
Now let's talk too, because your Twitter, even when it's not getting censored, you're dropping lots of juicy nugs, lots of helpful information. I see all the nugs, dude. And I see it. I will, you know what? I'm going to get vulnerable right now. I'm going to tell you something, dude. What if I told you this is a bond between two people? Like once I reveal this,
okay.
Dude, I have notifications turned on for you, dude.
Ooh, I don't know if I can look at you the same way now, man.
Dude, I mean,
we're on their level now. Okay.
I know that might have made things awkward for the rest of the show, but I just want to let you know that I have notifications turned on for you.
All right, well, every time I tweet now, I'm gonna just think to myself, make sure Manz would approve. So I appreciate that.
Okay, so let's talk about these Twitter because I see your charts. Some of them are very obvious, right? You got us going with the revenge games. I noticed that's a recurring series. But then I want to talk about you do these series of charts and you thread them in a way that makes it seem like you understand how to use Twitter. And I see this stuff with pace of play, and I see this stuff with pass rush, and I see green and red, and I have been told that the green is good and the red is bad. But that's correct. Still am having a hard time knowing how to leverage this data. So could you let us know kind of what you're trying to accomplish with these charts in the best way us DFS players can utilize it to get that sweet, sweet cash.
Yeah, buddy. That's all we're trying to get. But yeah, man, no, I don't know. We look at defensive stats. I'm definitely team defense matters. And more than that, just, pace of play and things like that, where when we go into these matchups, we're like, okay, team A, is 25th and pressures allowed. Team B is third and getting pressure. So we know it's a good matchup, but we're always kind of doing that equation in our head. And there's just wasn't ever a good resource for kind of these matchup specific stats. So that's all I really set out to do with this, is just take your stats with one team, combine it with their matchup, and then put it all together and see where the week's best matchups are. Because we're all trying to kind of do that anyway, but just didn't have a good organized way of doing so. So yeah, like you said, man, we got explosive plays, we got pace, pressure, adjusted line yards for the run game, and then turnover rate. Different ways you can kind of use it. I like to start my week off with it and just kind of identify some, we said before, sneaky shootouts, things of that nature. When you see a team, two teams, high explosive play rate, maybe they're both fast paced, maybe they're not. So kind of going through the different levels to see how many things add up. When you do have a team that does have a high explosive play rate, isn't good at defense, isn't good at pressuring, it's going to be fast paced. That's maybe a game you want to target. I think and then for defense, obviously kind of self-explanatory. You want a lot of pressures, you want a lot of turnovers. I think the most useful one might be the rushing trench battle, because you can just look and see what the highest adjusted line yards are between the matchups. Like this week, we know the Bengals, the Dolphins, the Rams, Cowboys, Chargers, and 49ers are pretty much distinctly above all these other squads. So doesn't mean that you need to necessarily, go after this 49ers committee where we don't know what the hell's going on, but it still helps, just kind of gives you a good base rate to then dive in and use the news and the depth charts and all that.
Well, I have one for you. And again, I'm not tossing you under the bus. I'm not saying your knowledge didn't work out. But so last week I got on to that Tennessee Ravens game because I saw your graph and about the amount of plays those teams were running, and combined they're running a ton of plays, and everyone seemed down on that game, I think because of the Ravens defense, which actually proved to be true. But maybe I was trying to leverage a little defenses don't matter. Where did I go wrong attacking that game, even though I was going to get a lot of plays?
It's a little tricky, man. And, it's definitely not this 100% predictive future, metric or anything like that. But I had noticed it's tough to balance kind of pace of play with how good the overall units are. I know a couple weeks ago, it was like Colts and someone were facing each other and they had a real high pace, but didn't really have the explosive plays. So I thought maybe that would override it. Turned out when you have two good quarterbacks moving at, a fast pace, you don't really need explosive plays. So my guess in the Tennessee matchup is just, man, like dig a little deeper, and you kind of know Marcus Mariota is going to have these up and down weeks as long as he's throwing with this, nerve damage in his elbow or whatever the hell is going on there. So it's pace is one thing to look at, but I think that's why it's important to look at the whole situation and not just kind of one of them.
Yeah, and I think, looking though at you put this tweet thread, guys, definitely check this out. It's at Hartitz on Twitter, and he threads these tweets.
It's pinned at the top. So
it's pinned. Well, you're gonna pin this show after, so you'll have to scroll down, but they'll figure it out. But it does seem like there are lots of games with high pace potential this week. It seems like I'm seeing more green than usual, and trust me, dude, I'm normally seeing a lot of green, my man.
Hey, it is weed is tight.
Well, that's a clip, just so you know. That's a clip. No, but yeah, so some of these games, I'm going to toss a few out where I'm seeing green: Houston, Jacksonville, Buffalo, Indiana, Cleveland, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, Baltimore, Rams, San Francisco, and
I think that's the game, man. Last one, Rams, San Fran. Both those teams are top 10. And look, man, CJ Beathard isn't a god or anything, but put him with Kyle Shanahan, he's been putting up a little bit of points here and there.
Okay, well, I don't want to derail us too much. We will get into some of these matchups here. I also want shout outs to guys in the chat. Trevor Marshall actually has a question. Man, this is off the board. What's the man say about Gio Bernard this week? I didn't even, is he even fully healthy, Ian? What's the deal with his status?
Gio did not practice today, so not looking good for Gio. But hey, maybe that's what they want you to think, right? A little contrarian play.
There we go. Now we're speaking my language. So there you have it, Trevor's. And I will just say, I mean, Mixon, when he is getting those bell cow touches, I mean, Mark Walton's, with all respect to Mr. Marky Walton's, he is not a factor. Mixon, if he has his backfield all to himself in a high total game, in a high pace of play game. Nice play, am I right?
Yes, sir. I like Joey Mixon. I mean, we loved I wish he was on the main slate, but yeah, give me all the Joe Mixon. We were all over Gio whenever he was the main guy. So
yeah, excellent here. So I also wanted to ask you, I mentioned you talk about these revenge games. You're like the revenge game dude. My Uncle Manzanelli had a huge score last week leveraging the Seabass revenge game in London against the Raiders. I mean, Seahawks -3 just smashed, dude. So I have to ask, what is your favorite revenge game narrative heading into this week?
Man, last week we had some great revenge games. Had Josh Norman and Cam getting after it in and out. Good stuff. But yeah, this week, Willie Snead with the Ravens, slot receiver, going up against the New Orleans Saints. Now, this one's bad, because if you dig back into Willie Snead last year, I mean, he had a really good first 2 years in the league. He gets the suspension to start last year. A lot of people drafted him around, 5, 6 in their fantasy drafts. You could have the Saints number 2 receiver after week 3 and 4. And Sean Payton gives him like 17 total targets from weeks like 4 to 17. Like, just put him completely in the doghouse. So now they even interviewed Willie Snead about it today. He said he felt emotionally excited when the Saints didn't match his offer sheet to the Ravens, and it left a bitter taste in his mouth. So revenge game. And also Willie Snead, he's got 5+ catches in 3 straight weeks. Kind of really is right there with John Brown and Michael Crabtree. So I think it's both a good play and, Snead wants it.
Yeah, dude, let's talk about this game while we are going to talk about Snead, because I do think he's legitimately interesting for DFS. Crabtree had the big game last week. Brown was a little quiet. Brown was super popular. Everyone knows all about the air yards, about how they're connecting deep. He's got everything going for it. Snead might be the guy that flies under the radar, because I do think Brown's going to be popular again this week. Crabtree, maybe you get the chasers. Is Snead where we go to get exposure to Flacco in this passing game without, getting too chalky?
I think so, man. I was looking at this matchup a lot because we know Saints cornerback Marshawn Lattimore. I know he got roasted by Mike Evans in week 1, but he's actually been pretty all right ever since. So, we kind of want to avoid him if we can, just because the rest of the secondary is so terrible. And yeah, I think the other teams are at least looking at Smokey as the as the Ravens number 1 receiver. The Browns shadowed him with Denzel Ward, their 4th overall pick, and the Titans shadowed him with Adoree Jackson, who was their number 1 pick last year. So 2 straight teams have said, we'll take our chances with, our number 2 guy on Crabtree versus John Brown. I agree with it. So yeah, I'd say go Crabtree or Snead over Johnny Brown this week, even though, I think John's obviously the most dangerous guy in that offense.
Now, I believe Levitan's does the projections, but just say a Millie Maker guess early in the week. I know it's Wednesday, it's early. What would you put the percentage ownership of that trio in the Millie Maker if you had to guess?
I think they're all going to be a little decent. I think Snead could be the most under-owned guy. I mean, we could see, that more 12% range for Crabtree and John. And around maybe 9%. Really, I mean, I don't think any of them are going to be overly owned a little bit. So I don't hate having exposure to all 3.
Yeah, dude, I'm loving this game too, because I'm also really curious to see where Alvin Kamara's ownership comes in. Everyone seems super bummed out about Mark Ingram getting goal line carries. I have zero concern, honestly, about that. And if you're getting, Alvin Kamara at 8,500, when he still has, other than Todd Gurley, the highest ceiling of anybody on the slate, I'm excited about that. Drew Brees, I'm hearing talk about, shout out to Ryan Hodges. He's talking about playing Joe Flacco in cash. Drew Brees is only $300 more. I feel like people are, I don't know why they're kind of down on the Saints right now. I'm wondering, something with Brees and Kamara. We get a pass catcher in there, run it back with Snead. We might be working with something nice.
Yeah, man, it's kind of funny. Freaking Brees is all priced that far down on DraftKings, and then he's the 2nd most expensive quarterback on FanDuel. So it's kind of like defense does matter versus doesn't matter there in DK versus FanDuel. But yeah, I'm with you on Kamara, man. I mean, look, he played 80% of snaps or something stupid, during Ingram's suspension. Sean Payton said that was more than they wanted to do. So when they were facing a Redskins team that has a terrible run defense, and it was just a blowout. Like, that's the worst possible game flow we could ask for Kamara. So anytime you can get low ownership on someone that good, man, I will take it. And yeah, it's not the best spot for Breeze and these guys, but if it was a better spot, they wouldn't be priced this cheap. So I'm definitely, anytime you can get low owned, exposure to what you are for sure is a really talented and good unit, I mean, go for it.
Yeah, no, it kind of reminds me of a few weeks ago when Aaron Rodgers was in the winning Millie Maker lineup. People were worried about his injury, didn't have all his weapons. But then it's like you're getting the best quarterback, underpriced, low owned. I mean, so, it's the same thing. Like, do I really care? I mean, again, to go back to the defense don't matter. I'm really not that scared about the Ravens when we're talking about Drew Brees.
They're good, but I mean, I think great offense could beat great defense. I mean, they can win the game, and Breeze can still hit you for 300 yards and 3 tutties. So,
well, let's stay on that theme of great offenses, great defense. You also post the weekly wide receiver cornerback matchups, looking at which wide receivers might see shadow coverage. And again, I know you're just presenting the information, but I know there's varying levels of how scared off we should be by some of those. So what would you say are some of the interesting matchups that maybe we should take into account when we're building lineups this week?
Yeah, there's quite a few shadow matchups this week. A lot of teams have actually started to use guys a little bit more often, I think, as they get the scheme down. I think the big ones to keep an eye on. So nice little spot here in Texans versus Jaguars. DeAndre Hopkins and Jalen Ramsey, expecting them to be shadowed. That's what happened in week 17 last year. And then AJ Boye is going to take Will Fuller on the other side. I mean, look, Hopkins, like, he just keeps winning these tough matchups. He had 2 touchdowns against the Jags last year, and that was only with a half of Deshaun Watson. So that's another spot. We just saw the Cowboys hang 40 on Jacksonville. I know it hurts, but man, I mean, you look at Hopkins' price. He's popping a little bit in our models. Next one, we talked a little bit about him, but yeah, John Brown on Marshawn Lattimore. Definitely think, looking away from that matchup is a good idea. And then mentioned him earlier, Denzel Ward, this number 4 overall pick out of Ohio State. Man, he's really talented. He's been getting his hands on the ball a lot already this year, but I'm expecting him to shadow Mike Evans. And I'm just not that worried about this matchup this week, though, because look at their freaking size. Mike Evans, 6'5", 230 pounds. Denzel Ward, 5'11", 180. I mean, sometimes it's that simple. And, we're talking about sneaky shootouts a little bit. I do like that Buccaneers-Browns game. I think it's got about under about 50 already. So maybe not that sneaky, but yeah.
That game is interesting to me because I think if we would have seen a little bit more signs of life and success from the Browns last week, that would have been the chalk game of the week.
Yeah,
everyone would have been on it, but everyone feels so burned by Callaway and Landry, especially Mayfield to a lesser extent, that I wonder if that will help suppress it a little bit. I do think Njoku is going to become super, super trendy as the week progresses, which sucks because he's obviously a great play, but I could see him up in that kind of territory Brait was last week, coming in at like 15 to 20% in the millie. Do you see things unfolding similarly?
Yeah, man, I saw Evan Silva gave Njoku a nice little bump yesterday. So the secret's out when that's going on. But it's weird how bad I was posting something about Jarvis Landry earlier, and someone was saying how can't take that game into account because he had Tyrod Taylor a quarterback then. But like Jarvis was much better with Jarvis was much better with Tyrod at quarterback. Because remember, Baker Mayfield didn't get any first-team reps like the entire month of August, and everyone just kind of nodded their head at Hugh and said, yeah, whatever, Tyrod's our quarterback, but okay, now Baker doesn't have timing with his top 2 options because he's only been throwing to him for a few weeks. So it's been pretty bad so far, but we're hoping this stretch. I mean, they got the same. They got the Buccaneers this week. I think they got the Saints coming up, the Chiefs coming up. Like these next 4 weeks, if Baker and the guys can't get it done, then I'll start to worry. But I think this is where we start seeing the Browns do a little something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure their next 4 matchups are all in the bottom 5 of fantasy points allowed to off. So it's, you never want to go full Colin Cowherd, full Stephen A. Smith, but it does feel like now or never for Baker Mayfield, 2 games into his NFL career.
Yeah,
but man, it sets up nicely. And I did see both Callaway and Landry popping up in Hermsmeyer's air yards by low model. It'll be very interesting to track ownership. Obviously, it'll probably fall somewhere in the middle of being chalky and contrarian. But I think we're going to have to keep an eye on those individual ownerships to know where we need to go in that game, because I agree that'll be a nice one to target. Oh, I did want to circle back to one of those shadow matchups you were talking about with Jacksonville in Houston. Last week, we saw Cole Beasley have a massive game. What do you think? If you are thinking, Hopkins, we've said he can get his, but if Fuller does get shut down, do we got Kiki Kutiz in the Cole Beasley role? I mean, is it set up for him to have another great game?
I think so, man. And I think the other guy, I'm touching on him a little later too, or is going to, but Ryan Griffin at tight end, I mean, quietly is averaging 7 targets per game over the last 2 weeks. I don't know what it is after last week, but I know going into last Sunday, Griffin actually had more end zone targets than DeAndre Hopkins this season. So, yeah, man, I mean, the whole Jacksonville defense is really good. Barry Church back there, Telvin Smith, Miles Jack. I mean, they are really strong in the middle, so it's not really an area to attack. But, I mean, I think it certainly makes sense that Watson's going to try to avoid Ramsey and Boye at least a little bit more. So, I think, yeah, look, Kiki Kute and, Ryan Griffin going across the middle. I'm fine with both of them.
Yeah, and obviously, the Cowboys don't use the tight end a lot, so it's hard to know about the tight end matchup just for last week versus the Jags. But a few weeks ago, and again, I'm not saying Ryan Griffin is Travis Kelce's, but Travis Kelce had over 100 yards receiving against the Jags. So there's something to be said there about, and I know defenses don't matter, but about them funneling some targets to the middle of the field, perhaps with those shutdown corners. Okay, so I feel like we've broken down those wide receiver cornerback matchups. I have to ask you a question. I'm a big Gronk guy, right? And we live in an era of the tight end punt plays. This is the Renaissance era of the cheap, shitty punt, the tight end position. And I so badly want the 69 King, Mr. Rob Gronkowski's himself, to be relevant. I want him to smash. You know what? I like the stiff arms, but I want to see him Gronk spiking. That's where the points are at. Is Gronk, dare I say, cooked? Or is this just is this a bad string? No, I'm asking you because I feel vulnerable right now. I keep playing Gronk and I'm not getting the point. So talk me off the ledge, Ian.
Dude, we're fine. Look, he's all right. This terrible Gronk star. He's still the PPR tight end 7. So that's just remember, keep in mind he's still playing just fine, just not the usual tight end 1 clear cut that we're used to.
Hang on, real quick. Do you know how many did you? I'm sure you saw this tweet. How many red zone targets Gronk has on the year?
Oh, no. I did not see the tweet. Something stupid like 3.
Try to go look. Dude, he has 1. The same amount as James Devlin, dude. Which I love.
I see him run that. They get down like the 5. They did a little play action, try to leak Gronk out. It's like, yeah, the defense isn't going to let Gronk just sneak into the back of the end zone. But look, that was the problem in weeks 1 through 4. Who else was on the field? Chris Hogan, Philip Dorsett. Defenses don't give a shit about those guys. They're putting their cornerback on them and living with the one-on-one battle. Now we got Josh Gordon on one side playing 80% of snaps. We got Edelman in the slot. You put one guy in those guys, you're getting toasted. So, I think we already saw it a little bit last week. I mean, Gronk, now all of a sudden they can actually get him in the one-on-one matchups, which just was not happening in weeks 1 through 4. So he's too damn good to let this go on much longer. I mean, they gave him this big, not saying this is super actual, but they gave him all those contract incentives before the season started, having to do a performance. So I'm sure Brady will get Gronk going soon enough before he has time to freak out.
Yeah, and let me just say, I'm playing devil's advocate there. I don't think Gronk is cooked, but do you know what I do think? I think some of this play calling that Mr. Belichick and Mr. McDaniels and their beautiful brains are doing around the goal line is asinine. They're going into jumbo formation. It's like they're trying to force us into thinking that Sony Michel was a good pick because in previous years, they're going spread offense. They're going up tempo. They're getting Gronk in ISO situations. They're running pick plays, all kinds of creativity at the goal line. And now it's like, well, let's just see if our first round running back with degenerative knee condition can punch it in. And then you guys will all look like idiots. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I think you have a point, man. I remember they'd go down there in jumbo and then they'd spread out and you'd have Gronk one-on-one with like a linebacker out wide. And it was like, how can you stop this? But man, it's tough to ignore Sony Michel at this point, just with these opportunities. I mean, that's everyone. I don't know if you loved him. I loved Rex Burkhead to start the year. And it was just, okay, he's going to be the Patriots goal line back, it looks like. And that position is amazing in fantasy. And that's what Sony has right now.
Well, while we're talking about tight ends, I want you to get a final take in about Gronk this week. Obviously, I don't think anyone's going to use him in cash, but clearly always a good tournament play. Someone asked on Twitter, they want some cheap tight end pump plays. Like I said, we're in the golden eras of tight end pump plays. What is your thoughts about Gronk and the overall tight end position this week?
Man, I'm definitely for Gronk this week when we're getting them at only 6,000. I mean, what the hell? Anytime someone's price over 1,000 more than Gronk, I mean, just take Gronk in whatever scenario that is. As far as the cheap guys go, like I said, I like Ryan Griffin, definitely there in Houston. There's Kyle Rudolph at 3,900 still seems a little bit low, and he's going to be a little bit – I think that's a nice pivot off of David Njoku at least, where you're still getting a tight end that is in a – is going to be featured in a decent passing offense, but you have lower ownership. My other pump play would be Ben Watson in another revenge game against the Ravens. But, I mean, I don't know how mad Ben Watson is at anyone, but – when you're that old, like you got to get up for something. So who knows?
That's true. What's your thought about? I've seen some of the season-long ranks, and people have Cameron Brate buried. I mean, he was one of the top-owned tight ends last week. Now he's a few $100s less than OJ Howard. There was this narrative that Jameis Winston, likes and prefers Brate. Is he now going to fly under the radar again? Is this maybe the low-owned way to get exposure to this Tampa Bay Cleveland matchup?
If we're talking GPPs, I think you might be onto something there, because I won't pretend to have any. I know you're saying historically it was a little bit Brate over Howard with Jameis, but I think that was more just Howard being a rookie and kind of them continuing to integrate him into the offense. I mean, he's been the best tight end on the team this year, and he was really outplaying Brate early on in the year, snap wise when they were both healthy. And OJ Howard's the #1 tight end in the league right now in yards per route run. I mean, he is the real deal. But, I mean, it is still kind of 50-50 in terms of who's going to have the big game and stuff. So, wouldn't touch it in cash. I don't like it in season long. But, yeah, man, if it's a good matchup like we have here against Cleveland, I mean, taking shots in GPPs with that situation, there's definitely worse ideas.
Nice. I did want to circle back. I guess it's along the same note of talking about pace, one segment we do every week on the Manz Maker program. I feel like I should get into my radio voice. In case you're just tuning in, this is the Manz Maker program. I'm host Pete Manzanelli. We are joined, of course, by Ian Hartitz from FantasyNetwork.com.
Fantasy Network.
The Shot Jock guys never know the actual name.
Yeah, of course.
No, so we're trying to find the sneaky shootout game of the week, and I know we've batted around a few games, and let's work under the assumption that this Tampa Bay Cleveland game is going to end up being one of the super chalky games. Yeah. What is your go-to for the low-owned, under-the-radar, game that could go over its implied totals by 10 or so plus points?
So you mentioned this a little before about being, worrying about the pace. The one I'm looking at has a slow pace, and that's what I'm worried about. But other than that, and Mr. Sam Darnold, I like the Jets-Vikings game as a potential sneaky shootout. Need to see what happens a little bit with these Jets receivers. Pryor, Anunwa, and Robbie Anderson didn't practice today, so don't love it as much, if Darnold's going to be throwing to a bunch of nobodies out there. But look, I mean, if you go to, just looking at some of these charts, if you guys want to check them out, I mean, the Jets right now this week have the most explosive pass offense advantage, and they're #2 in the rush offense. So they haven't thrown the ball a ton, but when they have, they've been really effective, and they've gotten a lot of chunk plays. And, it was only 2 weeks ago we saw Crowell, go for 200 plus. So these guys could create big plays, and the Vikings defense quietly just really hasn't been that good this year. I think they're bottom 12 or so in overall DVOA, and they've been giving up points. And with that said, the Vikings aren't looking great on the matchups against the Jets, but Jets secondary still banged up. Tremaine Johnson, Buster Skrine, 2 of their starting corners. And Kirk Cousins is playing out of this world. So that's another one of the things, when it is a slower pace, I like to see good quarterback play in that. So when we know Kirk Cousins is getting Thielen 100 yards a game, almost guaranteed, we're able to get our exposure there, and then maybe get some of the lesser owned Jets guys like a Jermaine Kearse or dabble with that running game. So yeah, I think there's some game stack appeal here in Jets Vikings.
Let's assume they all get healthy, say Anunwa, Anderson, Kearse, Pryor, what have you. Where do you lean there? 2 weeks ago, dude.
Hold on. Anunwa's definitely out. Pryor.
Oh, he's definitely out?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's work under that assumption. It seems like Curse is going to be your high floor target guy. He's going to soak up a lot of those short, yardage targets. But we've seen Robbie Anderson. He's had a slow start 2 weeks ago. I was just going to say, I built a Sam Darnold Millie Maker lineup that didn't have Robbie Anderson in it. Like, how do you do that, man? How do you do that? So obviously I want to play Robbie Anderson there. What are your thoughts on his matchup? Because that could be a little tough, yeah?
Yeah, man. I was really high on Robbie going into the season. It seemed like the biggest concern was that suspension he had hanging over his head. But there were some whispers in like August about just how the Jets weren't happy with so much of their offense going through him last year. And I guess it doesn't make, a whole lot of sense to have your rookie quarterback just consistently trying to chuck the deep ball downfield. We saw how that kind of works with Hugh Jackson, DeShone Kizer. But yeah, man, I think I don't hate taking the shot with him, but with this hamstring injury today and him not practicing, it's just tough. He's only getting 3 or 5 targets per game. The 1 week he did have, I think, 2 catches for 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he did only get 3 targets that game. So it's just, it's so low owned and just tough for him to really make that happen. And then I do think he will get Xavier Rhodes in his shadow coverage if he does suit up over Terrell Pryor. So that's just another hardship for Robbie to overcome.
Yeah, it's interesting because it obviously everyone's going to like Kirk. Everyone's going to like Thielen. I'm going to use this opportunity to transition to my other segment because it just segues so nicely. Your favorite pump play, your Stone Min type play of the week. And mine is actually in this game. We all know about Thielen. We know Diggs, dude. And you mentioned Rudolph earlier, which I like that too, but I'm going to go just a little bit deeper. What are your thoughts on Treadwell?
Hey, I think he had his best game of the year last week, didn't he? I was about to say, I mean, I buy the narrative that he's kind of reborn a little bit here with Kirk Cousins under center. And Manz, I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I mean, when we're GPP hunting, he's only, oh, fuck, man. I don't know. He's getting 4 targets per game, so it's asking a lot here, but banged up secondary. I guess we're fishing a little low.
Well,
I'll say this. I will take Laquan Treadwell over Kelvin Benjamin.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
I don't know how much of a compliment that is.
Well, we all saw it was a few weeks ago, the Thursday night game when Aldrick Robinson went off. Yeah. I guess I would need to look into the snaps and those target situations a little closer, but it does seem like there's room for that third wide receiver here to have a big game. And so I guess maybe it's just trying to figure out who has a better chance at that, Treadwell or Robinson.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I do think it's smart to pivot off that 3,500 range off of Josh Reynolds, who's just going to be 25-30% owned, it looks like, in the millie. I was looking at this matchup because Cooper Kupp's been ruled out. And when Kupp went out last week for the Rams, Robert Woods slid into the slot, and we had actually pretty clear distribution with Reynolds on one side and Cooks on the other. And, the Rams offense is amazing, but they run 3 wide receiver sets more than anybody 95% of the time. And they really don't move their guys around all that much. So this week, it looks like Reynolds is going to get a bunch of Richard Sherman, who's actually been playing pretty good this year. And, as the Packers showed, like these teams aren't afraid to just put their worst receiver on Sherman, let him deal over there, and then funnel everything else to Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods. So I wouldn't pivot over there to your boy Treadwell. I like going a little bit lower and going to Anthony Miller, the Bears slot receiver, going against the Patriots.
Wow. I want to hear you expand on that because people were very hype on Anthony Miller coming into the season. He was one of those training camp, preseason all-stars. Looks really good. Looks really good. I know he had a little injury stuff, but I think the real wrench in all of this is Taylor Gabriel's ascension, and he's soaking up a lot of those targets as well as Tariq Cohen. And obviously Anthony Miller is going to be a contrarian play no matter what, but make your case for Anthony Miller because consider me intrigued.
You said it, man. Tariq's just really taken over Howard here these last few weeks, and we've seen how well it's gone for the Bears offense. I mean, they get that win last week if Howard just doesn't fumble the ball at the 1 yard line. But yeah, I mean, look, Anthony Miller, he missed a week with a shoulder injury, so it wasn't like it was something that kind of hurt his hamstring or they're going to ease him back in. I mean, he came back to his usual 60% of snaps last week, so we know he's going to be that slot guy. I'm a little worried about Allen Robinson trying to deal with Stephon Gilmore on the outside, and I think Gabriel is probably going to be the guy that gets most of Belichick's attention on defense. So, kind of thinking with that kind of Tariq Cohen, we saw how the Chiefs used Kareem Hunt to really take some of those Patriots slower linebackers just deep and all that. And I think Anthony Miller could be that guy that we can see Matt Nagy kind of scheme open a little bit against the middle of the Patriots defense. I think is where you want to attack. So, we're not seeing a ton of targets, unfortunately, but I think the ones we could see will be fantasy friendly.
Dude, I love it. Shout outs to my guest last week, Eric McClungs, but he was a bit of a chalk donkey. I had to keep pushing him to some more contrarian plays, dude, but you're coming out with the goods, dude. Hit me with Anthony Miller. I like it.
Got to, man.
We also shout out Trevor Marshall's in the chat. He's tossing out another punt play. He likes circling back to that New Orleans game. He's tossing out Traquan Smith. Do you think we've seen, because for a while, similar, I guess, to the Gabriel Anthony Miller, there was kind of a Cam Meredith, Traquan Smith kind of split going on there. Do we think, based on his great game the other night, that Traquan is going to command more snaps, more targets going forward?
So the big thing with the game the other night was Ted Ginn was out with a knee injury, but he didn't practice today either. So, I mean, if Ginn's going to be out again, even Cam Meredith was limited today as well. So I think Meredith will be fine, but yeah, man, I don't hate that play at all, especially with, Baltimore hasn't moved their cornerbacks a ton, but I'd assume Michael Thomas will spend most of his time with Jimmy Smith. So if you can get, Traquan over against one of those lesser cornerbacks, I don't hate the play, but like you said, man, it's going to be different, I think, in the Saints target pecking order every week after Thomas and Kamara. So feels a little bit point chasey this week, but I mean, I don't think anyone's really on him again, even though he just balled out last time he was on the field. So don't hate that at all.
Okay, there you go. Traquan Smith is viables. Let's flip in the other direction from pump plays to lock button plays. A guy that you're just wanting to smash in to your lineup no matter what. For me, the lesson here is I need some running backs that are going to get a shit ton of touches. Last week, I got a little cute in my GPPs. I played a lot of Carlos Hyde. I thought I was doing some next level, galaxy brain shit.
I like Hyde too.
I know, dude. He was at 5%. I thought the touches were going to be there. It didn't work out, but I don't think it was an awful play, but it just does have me gravitating back to those guys who were great plays, which was Mixon and Connor and guys that were going to see 95% of their touches, regardless of game script, regardless of Hugh Jackson. So I'll let you go first. Is there, and it doesn't have to be a running back, but is there a lock button play that you've identified earlier in the week?
Man, I looked hard through this, and I don't see anyone that you necessarily need the lock. I get it if you want to just pay up for Gurley and just guarantee those, 20 plus touches he's going to get, and probably, a couple of them are going to be goal line chances. So I don't fault you there. The one play I just think is a slam dunk, and I mentioned earlier, is just Brandon Cooks. I mean, look, he's going to run most of his routes across from Jimmy Ward, who's the PFF's 100th ranked cornerback out of 111 corners. His backup is, Witherspoon. Said his name wrong. I'm sorry, but he's fucking 107. So we're looking at Brandon Cooks, who is, just taking the top off of any defense he faces, facing 49ers defense, where his worst case scenario is going to be lining up across from old man Richard Sherman, who I don't know. People are giving Sherman a bunch of credit for catching up on that Tyreek Hill deep ball. I think if Mahomes just kind of puts it on him, we might have a little worse opinion of Sherman at this point. So I'm not really buying the narrative at all that this 49ers defense is something to worry about. And I think with Kupp out, we can narrow down those outcomes a little bit more. And I think Cooks has the best matchup.
I love it. And I like that call, because I think what happens a lot when people build lineups is they see some of the higher price guys of the type of profile. Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller is another guy that comes to mind, and people associate them with boom bust type plays. And they say, why would I pay up for a boom bust play when I could get that in the 5K range, right? But the thing is Cooks has been sneakily not boom bust. He was leading the league in the top 5 in yards just a few weeks ago. He might have dropped down a little bit. But he's been consistent usage. You said the matchup is there. And I do think that people still would rather play Robert Woods. They'd still rather pay up for Gurley. Cooks is a tough guy to get in more conventional builds. So I love that idea of plugging in Cooks and then working backwards from there.
I'm with people almost treat like the big playability like a bad thing almost. That's why it took so long for kind of everyone to trust Tyreek Hill. I mean, look, there's not many receivers that are getting 8+ targets these guys are getting that many targets, and it just so happens that they can take any target 80 yards for a touchdown at any moment in time. So that's a skill not a lot of people have. So, I mean, I'm more, I mean, if you can get, as long as you're not banking on a guy like James Washington in Pittsburgh, or one of these guys that are true boomer bust, you're hoping one of their 3 or 4 targets goes the distance. I mean, if you got this 4.3 speed that can take the top off of defense, give it to me.
I like it. I like it a lot. My guy is going to be Kamara. I want to have Kamara in a lot of matchups, a lot of my lineups. I think he's going to be low owned. I think he still has that, Christian McCaffrey type floor that you're getting, that even when the game isn't going his way, he's not going to burn you. 8,500, he's high enough up that most people getting there might just go all the way up to Gurley, or they might want to go down to a McCaffrey. So he falls in that area where I love the upside, I love the floor, and I think people are going to be falling on either side of him. I think sharp people will be on him because sharp people like the man. But I think everyone saw Mark Ingram getting all those carries. I mean, I've seen some of the trades in season-long leagues that people are giving up Kamara for. I mean, people are spooked.
It's insane.
It's insane. So I think I might start all my lineups Kamara Cooks this week and just go from there, man.
Ooh, hey, it's a lot of upside, man. And yeah, even if Kamara doesn't average just like 6.2, whatever the hell he did last year, I mean, it's still fine, man. You still got a guy getting 50+% snaps in the, one of the best offenses in the league. So, I mean, Alvin Kamara is literally right now tied for the league high in red zone targets. So I know Ingram got these goal line carries. I know Taysom Hill is going to be a pain in the ass every time you roster either Ingram or Kamara, but man, he's too important for the passing game to go away.
Nice. All right, chat. I am going to challenge my guest to the 69 challenge. While I'm doing that, if you have any further questions, we might do one or two more questions at the end. So get those in the chat now if you'd like Ian while we have him here to answer a question. Otherwise, Ian, are you familiar with the 69 challenge?
So I know some of the details, but how about you refresh me?
Okay, so again, normally I am exclusively a GPP type guy, but I do the 69 challenge, which is ostensibly, that's a big word, look it up, guys, ostensibly a cash game challenge, but I turn it in to a tournament challenge for myself. So this is how it's going to work. I'm going to send you a head-to-head on DraftKings, and there are, of course, 9 roster spots. You, as the guest, my humble, prestigious guests, are going to get to use all 9 slots. Okay, me, I am going to have to throw out my 3 worst scores, meaning the best I can do is play my top 6 guys against you. Should be easy, right? Who couldn't beat someone with 3 less guys? So the terms of the deal are, if you beat me somehow, in some miraculous way, I will shout you out on Twitter. I will link to some of your stuff, make sure people continue to follow me. And trust me, dude, the man's bump is real. But if I were to beat you, as I beat Davis Maddox a few weeks ago, the super contrarian outside the box tournament lineup, then you have to go on Twitter and shout me out and call me the best DFS player of our generation. Are you willing to accept those terms?
Manz, I'd be happy to accept those terms.
Okay, dude. Okay. I mean, it sounds like you're a little bit of a tournament guy like me. Are you ready to, get yourself in the cash game mindset to take me down? Because, dude, I get freaky in these 69 challenge lineups, dude.
Man, it's a great idea. I like how you're leaving yourself here. It's almost a win-win for you. If any of us losers happen to lose with a 3 game advantage or 3 player advantage, that's gonna be a tough one. So it's gonna be some sleepless nights ahead. I'm gonna have to get back in the cash game swing of things because, man, I mean, I don't know how I'm going to go to work Monday morning if I take an L here.
Yeah, and I will say, Davis Maddox had to go on the Swolecast and talk about getting beat by me. So actually, I might you do the Monday morning recap show on.
I do with Chris Ravon. If
there it is. Yeah. That's where you'd have to shout me out.
That's a deal. I'll make that deal. Yeah.
Okay. All right. We got a few questions in here. Oh, we got one for me. From Joe Holkas. Kyle Juszczyk's, Jamal Charles, or Ito Smith lock in the 69 challenge? Well, I feel like this is a trick question because I cannot not say Kyle Juszczyk's my boy, dude. But man, my mentions were blowing up on Monday night. Did you see that fumble he had, dude?
Oh my gosh. It's, when you devote your entire life to a position group and they can't hook you up on prime time. Come on.
Seriously, when you devote your entire life. That's what I've done, dude. I'm actually starting to DM with a guy who's going to hook me up with a sleeveless Kyle Juszczyk's jersey. So,
hey,
dude,
are you a fan of Roosevelt Nix, the Steelers fullback?
Oh, yeah, dude. All fullbacks. I don't remember when I was talking about Gronk and James Devlin having the same amount of red zone targets, and I'm pissed because Devlin should have more, dude.
I got a quick story. Roosevelt Nix, my first snap junior year football in high school. Playing linebacker. I'm all hyped up. First play of the year. I'm on varsity. Everything's going to be great. I get one step out of my stance and I almost get thrown. I get moved back about 5 yards, 10 yards behind the line. You know, I was happy I didn't get pancaked. I'm like, what the fuck was that? Like, how fast is varsity football? I go back and watch the film later, and Roosevelt Nix, who was then a senior at Reynoldsburg, dude, you could have stopped at the snap of the ball, and there's one motherfucker about 3 yards upfield faster than everyone else, and that guy just about killed me. So I always hold some respect for Roosevelt Nix. He's out there smashing heads.
That's it, dude. Respect. And to answer your question, Hokas, of course, Juszczyk, all right? Look, there's all these funny games. You know, Matt Breida gets hurt every other play and then, like, marches back onto the field, and they're messing around with Alf Morris and Raheem Mostert. Do you know who the constant is? Have you ever seen Lost? And Desmond talks about his constant in the term of love. Well, the constant in this offense is Kyle Juszczyk. Quarterbacks can come and go. Marquise Goodwin and Pierre Garçon can come and go, okay? Breida and Morris and Mostert can come and go. But Kyle Juszczyk, Joel, Kyle Juszczyk is forever. That was powerful. Did you feel moved? Because you should.
I got teared up a little bit. Jeez.
You should get. Sorry. Okay, we do have one more question. We'll wrap up, and this is good because we haven't talked about defenses yet. Defenses are obviously one of the most maddening things when you're exclusively playing the Millie Maker like I do, because you have to have the defense who gets the pick six or the turnover that turns to a touchdown to win the Millie Maker. So he's asking about the Bears defense this week, and dude, I don't think I can touch that. What are your thoughts on the Bears and the defensive options?
It was funny. I thought you were going to ask me for a low price defense. I kind of like, and I was going to say the Bears, man. It feels so wrong.
Wow.
I feel like last week we just had tons of amounts of these kind of home defenses and pretty decent matchups. And this week it's just a pretty bare towards the bottom. If I'm going cash, I think I'd probably move up to Philly and take my chances there. I feel a little better facing the Panthers at home than I do the Patriots, but I don't hate that Chicago call. And man, like I was looking at my turnover charts, my pressure charts. I mean, the Bears are right there in both of them. They create turnovers all year. And, it's ridiculous when people say, oh, you got to stop Tom Brady by pressuring him. It's like every fucking quarterback is worse when you're hitting them constantly every play. But the Bears can do that, and they're one of the few teams that can. So I'm all for that. I mean, if you can pay up this week to Jacksonville or the Rams, it's kind of nice for both of them to be under 4K. So I think, Jacksonville at 3,600 against that sad excuse of a Texans O-line is definitely a bargain this week. But, yeah, I don't hate Chicago. I don't hate Philly.
Yeah, I think if I'm looking to pay up, I think I like going up to the Colts, not all the way up, but I like them at home with Derek Anderson. I know we would probably want it to be Nathan Peterman's, but I still don't mind the Colts there at home. And if I'm going down, I think I like the Bucs, dude. I know it sounds crazy, but Mayfield has been turnover prone. I'm not concerned about points for a Millie Maker. Points for the offense. It's like, oh, the Browns are going to score. That's fine. I'm just looking for one pick six and one strip sack that goes to the house.
So I looked at Tampa Bay, Manz, and I was worried about them just firing their defensive coordinator. But now I'm thinking about it, and I mean, they were the worst defense in the league with the defensive coordinator. So maybe I should be looking at that as a positive and not a negative.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't even gotten into that kind of narrative straight. I'm just thinking about if this game becomes the chalky game that everyone wants to stack, I don't mind having the defense in one of those high total games, because lots of possessions also mean lots of opportunities for Baker Mayfield to make mistakes that the Bucs could just fall into. They don't even have to be necessarily an above average defense. I just think there's some chance for some sneaky stuff, and they're cheap.
Man, you're playing chess and all of us are playing checkers, dude.
I've been trying to tell everybody that for years, but to have you articulate it is nice.
And no problem, man.
Excellent, dudes. Well, I want to say thank you to our very prestigious guest, Mr. Ian Hartitz. for joining us on the program today. You guys have to check him out. Hartitz on Twitter, now that he is no longer banned, and he has Roger Goodell outside of his house with a pair of binoculars, seeing what he's doing. He's back in those streets. Check his articles out on the Action Network. The dude, like a James Conner, like a Le'Veon Bell, is a true workhorse. And thank you very much for coming on the show, my dude.
Thanks for having me, Manz. Hopefully I won't be giving you too big of a shout out on Sunday night, but it was great talking to you. For
sure. And I will just say to everyone here, I have been in DFS mode. Okay. During the season or during the off season, I was heavily into the crypto streets, dudes. I was inventing my own physical cryptocurrency. It has been a while since Poker Manz has been an appearance, and I can't reveal it quite yet because I don't think the details are confirmed, but Poker Manz is making a return this weekend. I will let you guys know the details on my Twitter at Pete Manzanelli. Poker Manz is back. Ian Hartitz, have a good one. Good luck this week, guys. Get paid, get laid.